sometimes you just have to jump. Hey, creating maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your Reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create. As soon as my shoes hit the panels on the wooden hallway, I knew this was my place. This place was for me. I can't tell you what it was about being physically at Teachers College, but I knew. Just like how I knew when I went to Boston that it wasn't for me, or how when I walked on the Harvard campus and had flashbacks to William and Mary, I knew I wouldn't be doing that again. Just like when I drove into Baltimore after being accepted to Teach for America assignment, that this was not my city. I just knew. Have you ever had that experience? It's just a whole body knowing that you can't describe, but that's what it was like before I applied to the master's program at Teachers College in New York. At the time, I was working on access to essential medicines issues with a small nonprofit in DC, but I was ready to change gears. I was just a couple of years out of undergrad, and I was ready to get back into school and make a whole career change. International development, and specifically international educational development, was on my mind, and I was looking for the best program. And on paper, Teachers College was amazing. But it wasn't until I physically stepped into the building and started walking the halls that I just knew. That's why it was the only grad school that I applied to, because, well, why would you apply to another school that was a backup if you had no intention of going to that school? I wanted to go to Teachers College and nowhere else. And I was fully prepared to march up to that school with questions if I didn't get in. So I applied and I got in. I've thought about this many times over the years and talked about it with other people. The idea of going for plan A and only plan A. No hedging of your bets because you're afraid that you'll be empty-handed if you don't get what you want. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, why am I investing in plan B when I don't really want it? Just because I'm scared. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that another time. But back to the story. Even though I got into Teachers College, I didn't have any money to pay for it. And TC, as we students call it, did not give money to master's students. That was reserved for their PhD students. And TC was jam-packed full of master's students who were the cash cow for the entire program. So here I am, still in my job, holding the acceptance letter for my dream school and no money. What now? What would you do? Well, I looked around at my options and I applied for a scholarship that I found that was not associated with TC, but which if I got it would have covered the entire one-year program. I got all my papers together, my recommendations, I sent my application in. Then I get a letter from the committee. I open it and I didn't get it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was so bummed. What now? What was I going to do now? Meanwhile, my boss wasn't ready to let me go and we made a deal. If I stayed on for another year, he would contribute some funds towards my degree. So, look. I decided to regroup and defer for a year. The year goes by. I get to the summer before grad school starting and still no money except this employer contribution, which is generous, but it's still not enough to cover everything. Then here comes my dad with another contribution. And this is great. We're getting somewhere, but it's still not where I need it to be. I had enough to make some initial deposits, cover housing, a few classes, but that was it. I had no idea how I was going to pay for anything beyond that. And at this rate, I was going to have to stretch this program out over 2 years instead of 1. But what could I do? So the day came in August and I head up to New York from Maryland for my orientation. And I pack a small U-Haul with everything I own. And I said a prayer, which I felt was more like a statement. Hi, God, I'm jumping. Catch me. And off I went, taking all the cash I had left in my bank account, which was just $40. And as I drove slowly up to New York, up to the Empire State, I'm forking over my last money. And by the time I get to my new home and unload things for dinner time, it's like, okay, no money. I'm going to have a really close relationship with this credit card. And all I knew that night when I was in bed and laid my head on the pillow was that my first semester was paid and I'm here and I'm ready to go. I'm jumping in and we're just going to have to cross that second semester bridge when we get to it. But it was in those first few days after orientation that I walked past a sign that says, sign up to be a reading buddy and earn tuition credit. What? And so it began. That semester and the other 3 semesters in a summer it took me to complete that degree. As I went along, every new semester, a new batch of money would come through. Tuition credit here or tuition credit there. God was coming through. I'd become a reading buddy, and then I'd get a scholarship, and then I'd be a Sankel fellow. Then I worked in the student activities office. It was just like this patchwork of bringing all the funds together. He did catch me every single step of the way, just in time. The doors open, and I am so grateful for that time in my life and what a faith expanding experience it was. And now that I think about it, it's been a way of living that has shown up at various other points in my life. This is the commit first, know how later experience. And if you think about it, you've also done similar in different areas of your life. If you're married, this is essentially what you did. You had no idea, no matter how long you dated, what it was going to take to stay married to your partner. But you said yes to the dress or the tux. You walked down the aisle. You made those vows. And you're coming into the knowledge now of how later as you go along. And if you have kids, it's the same thing. Before you had them, you probably had no idea how you were going to pay for them, the whole hundreds and thousands of dollars it costs nowadays to bring a child to adulthood. And they didn't come with a manual to raise them. And even if there are manuals out there, they are missing whole chapters to address the quirks that are unique to your own particular child. But you did it, right? You committed to bringing them into the world, brought them here, and voila, you're bumbling along. Even your current job. Yeah, you thought you had the skills and an idea of what it was going to be. But like all jobs, once you got into it, there's a whole new world. And you're already committed and you have to figure it out. And you do. And you have. This is literally your whole entire life all the time. So this current challenge, this current new opportunity that you find yourself in is no different. Whatever it is. I'm bringing this up because we are in the final month of the year and we're staring a new year in the face. It's just a couple of weeks away. So this is a good time to reflect on how the year has been. So how has it been for you? How has creating been for you this year? Did you get into it right at the beginning of the year and just keep on going? Or were you stuck at the starting block and found that you were never quite able to pull the trigger? I want to talk to you about this because I want to set you up for success for your next year. Maybe this is what got you this year. You thought, there's this thing I want to do. There's this thing I want to create, but it's too big. It's too complicated. It takes too long, whatever. It's too something. So you sat on it, tinkered, but didn't make any real moves. And now here we are a year on and nothing really, but imagine, what if you'd done something, anything, a little tiny turtle step or a few? Where would things be right now? What would you be looking at right now? What might you have in hand already? I'm not saying this to make you feel bad, but to really press home the truth of the Chinese proverb that the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So let's talk about today and all the days going forward into the new year. Of course, you don't know how it's going to happen. Not all the minute details. That's the joy and beauty of life. But what you can't do is stand on the starting line and demand to know how things will go without even daring to make a move to enter the race. It doesn't work like that. Life responds to the committed. You must commit first before you can know how later. Only the committed get to know how. A year from now, looking back, I don't want you to feel like a whole year went by without majorly investing in what you want to create. Think about it. Looking back on today, a year from now, will you wish you were looking back on a year's worth of investment? Will you wish you had completed it? We often want things immediately. We want guarantees about our investment. We want to know we will win. We will be satisfied that we won't have any pain. But Much of this life is slow, steady investments over a long time. So slow and so small, we don't notice them as significant, but they are. They build up to something. They matter. So what do you say? Are you willing to commit to creating something new in the new year and find out how later? If you are, then you're ready to take these 3 steps. 1, decide. Decide what it is that you want to create. 2, commit. Commit to creating it. No excuses, just a big fat yes. And 3, jump. It's time to go for it. Decide, commit, jump. Let's do this together. On my journey to grad school, I didn't do it alone. All those different scholarships were things that came to me through different relationships and connections that I developed and built along the way of my journey. And I realized just how important it is to ask for help and let people know when you need help to help you move forward. And so I want to be that person for you on your creating journey. And all that I ask you to do to start is to be willing to commit, to decide, to commit, and to jump. And if you're up for it, then send me an email at joy@reframetocreate.com and fill in the blank to the statement. I commit to making this new year the year for creating, fill in the blank. Commit now. I'm going to show you how later. See you soon, Creating Maven. Until then, remember to always ask yourself, what will I create?